Okay, so on Tuesday, I had made a video saying that I've made a decision that I want to rewatch RWBY again. Because as I said in that video, the first time I watched the show, season 2 was currently airing. It was like an episode or two in. So I had binged the show, caught up, and watched season 2 as it aired. The second time I got caught up on the show was season 3. I think it was season 4 was coming out. And like I said there, I know they're called volumes, but I keep calling them seasons because it feels right to me. So I'm going to alternate between calling them seasons and volumes. But season 4 was coming out. So I was like, cool. I need to watch season 3, and it's been a few years. So let me just catch up on everything. So I binged the first 3 seasons, watched volume 4 as it came out. I watched volume 5 when it came out, and have not seen anything since. I've seen some clips, I've heard some discussions, both from like watching some videos and just like kind of casually hearing things like, oh shit, this just happened. And I've been wanting to watch it, like to get caught up again, and they just never got around to it. And I kind of kept hearing that it got really bad. So I'm like, I don't know how much I want to watch it. And essentially what made me decide to do it was I heard that it was so monumentally terrible. And it was just like, this now sounds interesting. So here's what I want to do. I want to rewatch it. There's currently 9 volumes. Volume 10 is confirmed. I don't know when it's coming. I think next year, but I could be way off base on that for all I know. Because I think Volume 9 came out in February of its year. So I'm going to assume Volume 10 is like next February, maybe? Anyways, my point. Essentially, what I want to know is, A, was the show ever good in the first place? 2, if it was, does the show get bad? And I guess, like, does the show actually get bad? When does it get bad? And if it does get bad, how bad does it get? Like, is it just kind of like a, yeah... It just kind of lost a lot of its spark. It lost some of its luster. It gets too convoluted for its own good. Like, it was too ambitious and it ultimately didn't work? Or is it like a dude, like, this is bad? Like, I don't know. And that's why I said I wanted to do this project. So, as you can tell by the title of the video, I've seen Volume 1. I'm going to be mostly focusing on Volume 1 here. But I did want to give an update on where I am in the show in general, because I do want to do a video on each volume. And then when I'm finished, it will either be, here's kind of like my thesis on the show. I guess it's like, here's like my overall thoughts on the show. What went wrong? If I think anything went wrong. Here's the shit that's really good and like stayed good. Blah, 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 blah. Or that'll all be part of when I do Volume 9. I don't know. But as a current update, I finished Volume 3 like 20 minutes ago. I binged Volume 1 on Thursday and watched a few episodes of Season 2. I binged Season 2 on Friday and then watched the first half of Volume 3. And then I finished Volume 3 today on Saturday. I work tomorrow, so I don't expect to finish Volume 4. I don't know if I'll start Volume 4. It's probably a better use of my time than watching the Jets and the Raiders. But I don't know. Like, I'll probably at least want to give the game a chance. And then if it's, like, terrible, I'll start Volume 4. But anyways, Volume 1. I think I can go ahead and answer my first question about RWBY. That question being, was the show ever good in the first place? As far as Volume 1 is concerned, I would say yes, but I don't know if you heard that aggressive sound. That's my cat giving himself a bath. I'm sorry, that like really distracted me. It's yes with a but. I find the show to be, it's like a good step forward. I think it makes a pretty good first impression as far as Volume 1 goes. It's not perfect. There is a lot of jank, both in its presentation and in its overall writing. But I feel like I can feel the passion that went into this. Like, this feels like this was somebody's baby. That Monty Ohm had this idea and he loved it. And he wanted to share it with people. And it's, like I said, like, there's a lot of jank. It's very rough around the edges. But it also comes across as so sincere that I can't hate it, even if I wanted to. And I don't want to, because I do feel like there is enough genuinely good stuff here. There is a lot of genuinely fun and entertaining moments, in addition to the really cool fights, that do make me go, not only do I feel like this was worth my time, which it's not very much. Like, I watched a video and I think it was 2 hours and 11 minutes, and it was all of Volume 1 plus the 4 character trailers, which, like, I was able to skip those, and I already watched the first episode, so I skipped that as well. But I'm like, yeah, it's just over 2 hours to watch all this. It's not a big time investment, and I sincerely don't think my time was wasted. And on top of that, yeah, I'm interested in watching more. Do I have, like, super high expectations going in and watching the rest of it? Maybe not necessarily, but I feel like I'm gonna have a good time and I'm going to enjoy myself. And I guess a little bit of a spoiler when I do my video on Volume 2 and Volume 3, yeah, pretty fucking good. Like, no, like, dead ass. And again, like, they have their problems too. They have their jank. I feel like it's kind of almost part of the charm of RWBY is that, like, it's not all going to work, but it's not gonna, like, really, it's not gonna be so awful that I fucking hate it, although there are some aspects like that. But it doesn't bring down the whole product. Maybe I'm foreshadowing and I'm just jinxing myself, because from what I understand, it's generally Volume 4 onwards where people are like, this is when it lost its way. But we'll get to Volume 4 when we get to Volume 4, which, like I said, might be instead of watching the fucking Jets and the Raiders. But let's get a deep dive a little bit more into Volume 1. So in terms of its plot, there's not a whole lot in Volume 1. Like, the pacing is not very good. I feel like that's the first, and I have a whole chunk of this video that is just going to be dedicated to the jank. I don't even think I wrote the pacing down, but I should have, because it always feels really fucking weird with how short these episodes are. But essentially the basic plot is RWBY going to school, forming a team with Weiss, Blake, and Yang, the WWBY of RWBY, working on their team chemistry. On top of that, you get this entire arc with John, whose name is John Arc. And I'm going to talk about that a lot more when I start going into the characters, like when I'm talking about John. But what I will go ahead and say at this point is he is the deuteragonist of Season 1. He has... I don't have, like, anything official about this. This was kind of just, like, the vibe check. I'm pretty sure he has more screen time than Blake and Yang combined in Season 1. It would not surprise me. Like, the B of RWBY does not feel that important overall. Although Blake does get some shit in the last, like the last couple episodes. But the first 14... not really. Like, Weiss and Blake aren't even in the first episode, but they made sure to include John in episode 1. And it is, and then they, like, again, I'm going to talk about season 2 and 3 later, but while they're relatively fresh in my mind, I will still bring them up for comparison's sake. It is notable how John goes from being the deuteragonist of the series to, no, he is now a supporting character. He's a secondary character. And with the way his character was handled, I think he's way better in seasons 2 and 3 than he is in season 1. I think he gets better in every season. The main plot, again, aside from that shit, because that's a lot of kind of the setup stuff. You got John's arc. The stuff going on in the background is some asshole named Roman Torchwick. I love Torchwick, by the way. He's one of the things I remember about the show. It's like, I love his fucking hat. I love his cane. I love his cigars. I love his dapper-ass cloak. I love his, just the way he talks. It's not just the shit he says, although I find it entertaining. He just always has this air of, someone's about to let me down. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's going to be one of my men. I don't know if it's going to be my enemy. I don't know if it's going to be me. But something is going to ruin my day, and I just want to make it someone else's problem while I still have the chance to. And it's great. Every time he's on screen, which is not much in season 1, he gets his most screen time in season 2. It's really fucking entertaining. But so he is stealing dust, which I'm trying to remember exactly what dust is, because literally the show starts with an explanation. Really what it is, my understanding of dust, from seeing the show happen. That was a weird way of saying that. From watching the show, seeing the show happen. What the fuck am I talking about? Anyways, from watching the show, it's crystallized magic. It is, here is some shit that grows in the ground, because you can literally mine it. That's most of where the shit comes from. That when you use it, can give you some kind of magic power. Some of them are ice-based, some of them are, I almost said water-based, and that's the same shit. Some of them are fire-based, some of them can do, I don't know, make platforms where you can jump off of, because I believe, all of Weiss's glyphs, except for the summoning that happens in season 3 onwards, are caused from the dust she has in her rapier. So it's crystallized magic. In a sense, it's, to use a Mistborn comparison, it's allomancy, but everyone can use it. The magic does not come from the person, it comes from the object. So Torchwick is going around stealing dust for some plan that you don't really know what it is, because you don't see him a whole lot. I think it was literally episode 1, and then either the last episode or the last 2 episodes. Anyways, there is some shit going on in the background. And the last bit of plot is they talk about, what do they call it? I think it's called the Vital Festival, which I pretty much the entire 3 seasons just refer to as the Triwizard Tournament, because that's what it is. It's okay, students from all over the globe, all the other hunter and huntsman and huntress academies are coming. They're coming to Beacon. They're coming to Vale. Vale's the country. Beacon is the academy, for a big tournament, and we're celebrating peace and all that cool shit. And you're yeah, this is the Triwizard Tournament, and it ends about as well as the Triwizard Tournament does. They knew what they were. Monty knew what he was doing. I assume he's read Harry Potter. And, yeah, that's the plot. There's not a lot that really happens, and as you can kind of, get, it's really just setup. Here's the team. Let's get to know them a little bit, work on their team chemistry. Here's some shit going on in the background. We'll do more of this in later seasons. There's a tournament coming up. We're definitely going to do more with that in later seasons. Not even really plural, because they don't really do anything with it in season 2. I mean, I guess, no, they do a little bit, because it's other people coming to Vale and Beacon. And then season 3 is just the Triwizard Tournament. And the climax, which is To quote that recent episode of Adventure Time, it's really like that stupid episode. It was great. Sorry, I say a recent episode. Clay and I are like halfway through season 2. I don't want to make it sound like there's a recent episode of Adventure Time, aside from like the Fiona and Cake stuff. Anyway, so we're getting super off track. That's the plot. There's not a lot that happens. It's basically all setup. But I think it's still, for the most part, pretty good setup. And like, yeah, all right, you've laid the foundation. Let's see what you do with it. The next thing I have to talk about is the fights. Because RWBY is an action show. The trailers were essentially just fight scenes. A couple of them actually really had some story in them, like Blake's did. Yang's had quite a bit of dialogue in them. And each one really kind of set up shit for the characters, which for the most part isn't really followed through on in season 1. It's mostly season 2 and season 3 that actually does that. But going into the fights, I don't have them listed in a particular order. It was just as I was doing my notes, like, oh yeah, that fight. Let me write that down real quick. Oh yeah, that fight. Let me write that down real quick. So, but the first one is the first fight in the series proper, which is RWBY fighting Torchwick and his goons, then fighting Torchwick, and then... So one of the teachers is named Glinda Goodwitch, and I hate it. I love it, but I hate it. But then you get Professor Goodwitch fighting an unknown shadowy person that, if you've seen the series as it goes on, you know to be Cinder. While Cinder's in like a helicopter and shit. RWBY's introduction as a character, again, like, it can be a little confusing at times, like when I'm talking about the character, when I'm talking about the team, or I'm talking about the show as a whole. But the introduction of Ruby Rose, to me, is kind of a fucking perfect character introduction. She's in a store, listening to music, which turns out to be the opening of the show, which hasn't played yet, which is just something I'm really fond of. Like in the first episode of Madoka Magica, when they're in the music store listening to music, Madoka is listening to the opening. And it's like every time I'm like that, I just dig that. And I think later when Kyoko is playing DDR, it's a remix of the opening. I'm like, that's so fucking cool. I love that. I don't even know if I'd say it's an attention to detail. It's more of an Easter egg, but it's an Easter egg I really like. She's listening to music. A dude tries to rob her. She's very confused. Like, are you robbing me? Yeah. Oh. Kicks him out the window. So, like, kicks him out the window, jumps out the window, stands there like a fucking gargoyle as she, like, unfurls her big fucking scythe, and then just starts kicking ass. Like, this is a really cool character introduction. And as far as fights go, it's definitely not my favorite in the series. It's not my favorite in season 1. It's pretty fucking cool, though. And a lot of that is my bias for RWBY's fighting style. I do love a lot of, like, how she uses, like, the recoil of the sniper rifle fire and shit. I think it's really cool. I love scythes. I'm probably going to say this, like, every season when talking about the show. I'm like, I just love scythes so much. I love Crescent Rose as a weapon so much. If a fight features a lot of RWBY doing shit, it's probably going to be one of my favorite fights, which is kind of ironic because possibly my favorite fight in the show proper so far has, like, no Crescent Rose in it at all, but that's not till season 2. And like, as she fights the goons, fights Torchwick on the roof, then there's just this really, I don't want to say like really long, but like this really cool moment where the professor is basically the professor is using ice shit. Cinder is on the plane just throwing fire, and they're like manipulating the fire and manipulating the ice. Like, it just looks cool. It's a really fun set piece. It's a dope fucking fight. The next one I have written down, it's not a fight, but it is an action scene. It's when they're like thrown into the woods. So they can, it's like, all right, you're going to land, and the first person you make eye contact with is going to be your teammate, and they are going to stick by your side the next 4 years while you're in this academy. Which I think is pretty fucking stupid, by the way. Like, that's how you did this? You didn't say, like, you know, like in our capacity as professors and headmaster, we paired you up based on, you know, multiple different factors, you know, based on personality, compatibility, kind of how you guys would balance each other out, on fighting styles and how you kind of cover for each other and shit. This is what we are like, nah, it's complete random bullshit. I don't know about that. That again, it's one of those things like that's kind of a little janky to me. But as they get literally thrown into the woods, like, cool, land however you want. Like, do something to, you know, to get fucking safe. It doesn't last super long. I think it's like 2, maybe 3 minutes. But it's like so fucking cool to watch. Like, Ruby is like using her scythe, hooking it around a branch, spinning, like getting on top of the branch, and then just like getting down. I think what Yang did was she was just like kind of kept like punching the air because every weapon is a gun, and like using the recoil of that to kind of slow her descent as she would like go from branch to branch and shit. You're like, this is so sick. Like, this is so cool to watch. It's like so smooth and so sleek. This is a fun idea. Now, again, like in context of like what's happening in the show, I do think the first person you make eye contact with is pretty dumb, but I think this exercise actually makes a lot of sense. You had to apparently, because RWBY didn't, and we know John didn't, you're supposed to go through a very rigorous, like, excuse me, what's the word I want? Entrance exam. And the idea is, like, if you made it into Beacon, you should be able to do shit like that. As a huntsman, as a huntress, you need to be able to adapt on the fly to kind of any situation. You should be able to know how, like, figure out how to land safely. And literally everybody but John is able to do it. And it's like, it sounds fucking insane, but I feel like in the context of the world, it actually does make sense. And like I said, it's a fucking treat to watch. There's this fight. It's very short, but while Pyrrha is explaining to John, okay, so this is how aura works, because there's like a few different magic systems in RWBY. So there's dust, there's your semblance, which I'm assuming is part of your aura, but in the show proper, they never really explain how a semblance works or if it's magic, because there's a part in season 3 where Osmond's like, yeah, like, can you imagine people doing crazy magic shit without dust? I'm like, yeah, that's what a semblance is. No, that's magic. So are you saying that semblances are magic? Because that's what I assumed. Or are they not magic? I'm a little confused here. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But as they're explaining, it's like, all right, you have your soul, your aura is kind of like your soul manifested, and essentially you can create like a little mini shield around you to protect you from shit and blah, 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 blah. You get this fight with Ren fighting like these 2 snakes that I just called the yin yang snakes, because one's like all black and one is all white. And it, again, like, it's not the best fight. It looks fucking cool though. You're gonna notice a pattern where I'm like, yeah, this fight is either like really good or like this one's okay, but fuck, it looked really cool, or like that was a cool move kind of shit. Like, it was cool. I liked it. There's one later in class where Weiss is fighting a Dawn fan, because like it's an elephant themed thing. It's about the size of a Dawn fan, and it fucking uses rollouts. I'm like, that's amazing. I love this. And again, like, I think it was probably one of the weaker ones. Like, there wasn't as much cool shit happening. I'm saving that one. There's a fight where John is fighting a bear. And I mean, like, I have to give it some credit for John having a fight where he wasn't complete dog shit. He was actually able to beat something. Props. There's a very short fight where he's dueling Cardin, and he is just complete dog shit. So, Sorry, John. He just kind of... Actually, I'm not sorry. I kind of fucking hated him in season 1. I'll talk about why in a bit when we get to the characters. There's really only 2 other fights to talk about. The climax of season 1 is Blake, Sun, and Penny fighting a bunch of White Fang dudes, fighting a bunch of mooks, essentially. I say it's the climax because it's in the last episode of the season, and it's kind of plot relevant. I mean, it is plot relevant, but it doesn't feel like a climax. It doesn't really feel like there's massive stakes to this fight. And it's not like, oh man, we're fighting this character. This is a big deal. You're just like, no, you're just fighting a bunch of dudes. We get to see how Sun fights, which is, it's a bow staff that can trick because all these weapons are fucking Bloodborne trick weapons, and I love it. It's a bow staff that can trick into nunchucks that can trick into a flintlock. I think instead of it being like a bow staff proper, it's one of those bow staffs that's like with the chain links in between them, so it's like a 3 staff that you can put together. Because his name is Sun, he's a monkey dude, he's Sun Wukong, that's literally his name is Sun Wukong. And then you see in the next season, his semblance is he can make clones, so like, okay, there's more Monkey King shit. The Monkey King's cudgel, like Goku's power pole, because Goku is based on Sun Wukong, that's why he's Sun Goku, is being able to like change its size and shit, so... I mean, I guess in a way that, like, it being, like, a super trick weapon could kind of make sense, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's why it's segmented, but you never really see the segments again outside of that fight, so I don't know. But it was still kind of fucking cool. And then Penny, the robot girl, because I remember watching season 1 for the first time, and I was like, oh, cool, so she's a robot. Like, that... I didn't know we had that level of technology in this series, but we also have smartphones, so sure, I'm on board for it. And then in season 2, she's like, you can't tell anybody, but I'm a robot. And like, yeah, no shit. Which I also remember the first time I watched season 1, and Blake's like, I'm a faunus, I'm a cat girl, like... Oh, that was a bow? I just deadass thought they were cat ears the entire season. Whoops. I accidentally spoiled myself, I guess, which I just kind of remember giggling at. But, like, rewatching, I'm like, yeah, like, that's very clearly a bow. I honestly think my terrible fucking eyesight weirdly spoiled a major reveal. I guess I'll take it. But yeah, like... It doesn't really feel like a climax, but seeing Sun and Penny fight is pretty cool. I really like the way Penny fights. Just like, alright, I have a bunch of fucking knives. I'm just spinning around and throwing at shit. And there's like wires that they're connected to. Which she doesn't do a whole lot of like crazy shit with the wires, but it's still kind of cool. They also can just each turn into fucking laser pistols, and she's like blowing up airships and shit. Which sounds like that should be really cool and climactic, and it is cool. It just doesn't feel like a climax. The last fight in season 1 does, though, even though it takes place maybe halfway through the season. And that's the bridge fight. Which is Team RWBY is fighting a giant bird, and Team Juniper is fighting a giant scorpion. And the Juniper part is pretty cool, mostly because of Nora, whose weapon is a sledgehammer, which means like, oh, she's just super unga bunga, this is fun. And it tricks into a grenade launcher, which is super unga bunga and really fun. From what I remember, I remember watching me like, Ren's not doing like a whole lot. Nora's like kind of literally doing a lot of heavy lifting. Pyrrha does some cool shit, like especially when she just throws her shield at the giant stinger and like decapitates it, and then Nora just finishes it off by banging that into the head. That was really cool. John doesn't do a lot in terms of the actual fighting. what the fight is trying to do is emphasize the fact that what John is good at is strategy and directing people mid-fight. What he lacks in actual combat skill, he more than makes up for in his mind and how he can, like, apply theory to the field. It kind of works. I feel like the problem is he doesn't really do anything, like, super tactical. It really is just like, oh shit, like, the Stinger's a problem. Pyrrha, can you kind of take care of that? And it seemed like Pyrrha was kind of already going to do that on her own initiative anyways. And then, hey, the Stinger landed on the thing's head. Hey, Nora, can you just finish it off? Like, yeah, like, it doesn't really take a genius to come up with that strategy. But that's about as deep as John's, like, strategy and tactics go. I mean, I guess there's kind of something you could talk about with, like, his entrance exams, which I will talk about, but, like, I feel like this could have been handled better. Meanwhile, you get RWBY, who comes up with this absolutely batshit fucking insane idea for her strategy with the slingshot. It's like, okay, I don't even remember what Yang did in that, because I specifically remember, like, Blake, because of the way her weapon works, is able to, brain stop for a second. So her weapon can trick into, like, a sickle, which has a really long string, or as I like to call it, a kunai with chain, which she uses and, like, wraps it around, like, two big-ass things of stone. They use Weiss and her magic and her glyphs to, like, hold it in place and draw it back like a fucking arrow. And RWBY's the fucking arrow. You're like, okay, I'm standing on my scythe, and you're gonna fire my scythe into the mountain while you've got all your glyphs there, and I'm gonna start running up the mountain, and as I'm running, I'm gonna have my scythe pointing backwards, so the barrel is behind me, and I'm just gonna keep fucking shooting it, and the momentum and recoil is gonna push me up the mountain that I'm running for maximum momentum. And as I'm dragging it and dragging the blade, I'm gonna hook the bird's head around the scythe, and I will have so much momentum from my gun and running up your shit that I'm gonna cut its fucking head off. And it works. It's so fucking cool. And there's just, like, other shit that I don't as much remember. Again, I've watched, like, 40 episodes of RWBY over the past 3 days. It's kind of blended together. I really should have made this video sooner, and I kept wanting to, but I had other shit to do, like watching more RWBY. But, that fight is fucking awesome. That part specifically with the slingshot is really creative. Oh, also, Red Like Roses Part 2 is playing, like, the entire time, which is an absolute fucking banger. And it doesn't even play the full version, because I know the song, because I've listened to it a few times. I actually was, like, listening to RWBY music the other day when I was doing the last level of Mario Wonder. I'm like, yeah, this music's hype as fuck. Too bad I'm dog shit at this game. But it's like a duet between a woman and her dead mom, which I'm assuming is just supposed to be with RWBY and her mom. And I think it's really, really good. But the fight doesn't go long enough to start getting into the mom's part. It's the instrumental and then the first verse, which is still really fucking good and really fucking hype. And I'm like, this was a good fight. It's good shit. Really, really good shit. And I know I had said in that previous video, it's like, from what I remember, the show is at its best when no one is talking. When I can just focus on a fight, crazy, insane bullshit is going on. Kind of like Symphogear. Like, Symphogear is at its best when I can just appreciate the fucking insanity. And, like, the only real dialogue that I'm hearing is people singing, or in terms of my favorite scene in Symphogear, literally screaming the lyrics to the song so you get transformed. Oh, it's so cool. And I feel like as far as Volume 1 goes, I definitely stand by that. There are still some moments, like, dialogue-wise, that are actually pretty good or genuinely pretty funny. There's a lot of the writing that just doesn't. It's like it's supposed to be funny, but I'm not really getting a laugh, or it's supposed to like be really interesting, but it doesn't quite work. But the fights work really well, especially the fucking bridge one. So getting into the cast, our protagonist, Miss Ruby Rose herself, Miss You Have Silver Eyes, has no social skills. I mean, she really doesn't. she is very fucking awkward around people. Which, the thing I really like about it is it reminds me a lot of, I can't remember her name from, I want to say Rin, from Eurocamp, which, by the way, I have a Eurocamp poster right there. How her thing is like, yeah, she doesn't have a lot of friends. She's very antisocial. But she's okay with it. It's not like, man, I have this tragic backstory, that's why I don't have friends, or no, friends are horrible, and blah, 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 and you gotta show her the power of friendship. She's like, nah, I'm just kind of a loner for the most part. But I like it. I like how quiet it is. I like how relaxing it is. There's still people that I talk to, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with having friends. I do like the friends that I have. But my quiet moments are still important. Ruby kind of feels like that. She's not like, man, I need to have friends, but like, I'm so shit at this. She's like, why do I need friends? I have my sister, and I have my sniper rifle. I need nothing else. This is perfect. And then when she tries to make friends, she damn near fucking explodes. Which I kind of hate that scene because of how weird and like a lot of Weiss's dialogue feels like it's very exposition-y about this is what dust is, and I'm just kind of thinking it's like, was this written after they finished writing episode 1? Or before it, because literally the start of episode 1 is like dust and blah, 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 blah. It's like, this feels like it's supposed to be exposition for the audience, but it's exposition the audience already had, and I'm assuming this is shit that Ruby herself would already know, so like, it's so awkwardly written. But anyways, Ruby herself, no social skills, but I find it very endearing. She is very childish. Essentially, like, the way she fights is, I'm just kind of gonna rush in and think of something as I go. Which I do really like. And I like both ways of it, because there's times where it works super well. Like, again, I just finished watching Volume 4, and there is some real Symphogear-ass shit she pulls near the end. It's like, I need to get onto that ship. So I'm going to jump out of the ship I'm on. I'm going to, like, cloak teleport back into the Coliseum. I'm going to find one of the lockers. I'm going to hook my scythe onto the locker. I'm going to shoot the locker into fucking space. And then I'm going to jump off of it onto the airship. Well, that was fucking insane, but it was cool as hell to watch. You go. And then you get shit in season 1 where she's like, there's a big-ass enemy. I'm going to just run towards it and come up with a plan, and not only does she not think of something in time, Weiss specifically has to save her. Like, she almost fucking died. And I laughed really, really hard. Specifically, because the thing that fucks her up is the scorpion, I don't even remember what it did. It, like, made a bunch of spikes or some shit, and one of them caught on her cape, and she couldn't escape because of that, and you know exactly what I was thinking. Just no capes! And I fucking loved it. It's like, oh my gosh. I didn't think I would actually have a chance to reference that in RWBY, but like in season 1, we get a no capes moment. That is fucking gold. Oh, sorry, bud. If you can sit on my lap, I can't have you sitting on my notes though. Is there anything else I really had to say about RWBY? I will say, One thing I like is that she's very close to her family. While Yang isn't on screen a lot, you do get the sense that the sisters are very close. The way she talks about her dad is very affectionate. Like, there is a scene between her and Yang where Yang's like, yeah, you gotta make friends, RWBY. I love you, you're my little sister. But you also kind of need to go your own way and make your own group of friends and shit. And she's like, you sound just like Dad. I did notice, she does mention Crow. Like, Crow is literally mentioned in the first episode of the show, although he doesn't show up until season 3. I was like, oh, that's a nice little bit of foreshadowing there. She does not mention her mom in season 1. I don't think she mentioned her mom in season 2 either. Yang does. RWBY does not really mention her mom until the start of season 3. Because her first scene of season 3 is she's at her mom's grave. So again, kind of talking about the character trailers and RWBY being at somebody's grave, not followed up on in season 1. Then we move on to John. And I feel like I kind of have to talk about John before I talk about Weiss, Blake, or Yang, because he is the deuteragonist of the season. John, for lack of it's not even for lack of a better word. I don't care if it sounds mean. I kind of hate him in season 1. John is pathetic. He is useless. He is actively the load in almost anything he does. And there's times where it is funny, and there's times where it's kind of endearing. And then there's times where I'm like, this is just sad. This is actually, really sad. To me, the problem with John, and it's not just in a show called RWBY, it's really just Rouge. Because there's R, J, and then a little bit of W in the middle to kind of balance them out, I guess. But it's mostly just R and J. R plus L equals J. But there's no L. Anyways. It's mostly R and J. John does not belong in Beacon because he's absolute dog shit. And it's not just okay, well, he is really smart. He did really well in all of his courses and all of his exams. He just lacks the physical ability. No, he cheated his way into Beacon, which I love and I hate, and I also hate it more. So the first reason why I hate it is it does kind of make me go, no one on the staff caught this? Professor Goodwitch is how the fuck did this kid get in here? I know his transcripts say he was really good, but this kid is so unready. Which means that at the very least, she had no idea that they were fake. And in the first 3 seasons, there's no confirmation on Ozpin if he knew that John had faked it and let him in anyways, or if he genuinely didn't know. I don't know if later seasons go into it. And it is one of those things where either Oz knew and was you know what, kid? I like the cut of your jib. You do not belong here, but you want it so bad you're gonna lie your way in. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna let you in, and I am not gonna treat you different from the other kids. If you can handle it and have it toughen you up, good shit. And if you can't, you have no one to blame but yourself. Or he genuinely had no idea, which reflects very, very poorly on Oz. And on the one hand, it's with the way he's written and the way other characters hype him up as someone who's so intelligent and so wise and so long-lived, you kind of think it's probably the first one. But also, I've seen the end of season 3. I can also believe the second one as well. But that's kind of why I hate it in the first way. It makes the staff of Beacon look really incompetent. Though again, given the ending of season 3, maybe that's the point. The reason I love it is I actually think that's a really interesting thing for his character. For John to go, I don't belong here, but I want it so badly, I'm going to make it happen. I am going to put my life in danger. I'm putting my teammates in danger too, because they have every reason to assume that I'm competent when I'm not. And it's like they're gonna rely on me when I actually can't pull my weight, and that can fuck people over. That's really fucked up and selfish, but it is kind of interesting. It's like, okay, like let's see what you can do with this. What I would expect is I want to be a hero. Like, I want to be a huntsman. My dad was, my grandpa was. I can't get here on my own merits, so I'm going to bullshit my way in. But once I'm in, I'm going to work my fucking ass off. You are going to see me, like, in the weight room. You're going to see me, like, in combat training, however I can. Like, the kids who are really good at this shit, I want to get to know them. Not so I can mooch off them and kind of, like, ease by and let them do all the hard shit. No, I want to learn from them. What makes you tick? What makes you so... Sorry, I said you tick, and now I'm thinking of Xenosaga. But it's like, what makes you tick? What makes you so strong? How can I learn from you? And when he's in class, you expect him to be, like, really paying fucking attention. And he's like, dude, like, this, I'm not getting this. But I need to work hard. I need to study. I want to be a hero, and I'm going to fucking work for it. Look at Deku from My Hero. This kid had to work his ass off. It's not just that All Might said, eat my fucking hair, and there you go. He's like, if I give you my power with your current body, it'll probably fucking kill you. You need to work for this. And Deku put in the fucking work. And while he's at school, he's like, I just now got my quirk. I am years behind everyone here in a very competitive environment. I have to work that much harder, and you see him do it. And it's so satisfying. And that's the other reason why I hate this. Because John doesn't. You don't see him busting his ass trying to get stronger. You don't see him in class, like, really paying attention and trying to better himself. Like, I'm going to make sure that if I can't fight worth a damn, I can outthink everybody. Like, no, you see him in class, like, completely zoning out and being super bored and shit. And then when Pyrrha talks to him, and I'm gonna go ahead and apologize, because I know there's times where I'm gonna call her Pyra instead of Pyrrha, and I know that's wrong, and I'm not doing that on purpose. It's just gonna happen. But Pyrrha goes up to him at one point, and she's like, okay, John, you're trash, you're dog shit, but I likes you. I want to help you. Like, if we have, like, private training sessions, because, like, I'm the baddest bitch in school. I can help you. I can make you stronger. And you're my friend. You're my teammate. You're my leader. I want to see you stronger because I believe that you can be. Let me help you. And John, instead of going, thank you, I'm so fucking happy to see someone actually believe in me. Because my family doesn't believe in me. I don't believe in me. Like, I had to cheat to get here. But knowing that you think I can be better makes me want to be better. It makes me want to put the work in. Let's go. His reaction is, I want to be the hero, and if someone else has to help me get there, then I'm not actually being the hero. So, no, just shut up and go away. Like, wow. You unlikable little shit. Wow. And then, because, like, this is after he gives his whole spiel about, like, yeah, I had to cheat my way in and blah, 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 blah. Cardin, the local bully, overhears this and is like, all right, tell you what, Johnny boy. I now have dirt on you. Like, I already don't like you because you're a little shit. But now I know you're a liar and a cheat. Which, I kind of respect that, by the way. Like, you passed your chutzpah check. But also, I have dirt on you now. So, do what I tell you or you're gonna get fucked. And, like, I'm gonna tell. And I don't feel bad for John being in that situation, because from everything I have seen in the show up to that point, I'm like, yeah, you actually don't deserve to be here. Not only did you not you didn't get in here by your own merits, not only are you underperforming, but you're not trying. I haven't seen you try. And no, that doesn't just mean that's like, yeah, okay, he's kind of shitty. That means he deserves to be bullied. Like, no. But I just find him so insufferable in season 1 that I don't empathize or sympathize with him, even when I'm clearly supposed to. And so it's like the one thing, I guess there's only 2 things he does to be like, oh yeah, he's the leader of the team, which is number 1, he gives a little bit of strategic insight to the fight, which again, like, I don't feel like is really that much. And they don't do too much. They don't do anything else with that in season 1. The only other thing is when Cardin's like, hey, that Pyrrha bitch, like, she made me look like an idiot. So I'm going to get some revenge on her. And you, John, are going to do it. And John says no. Which you can make an argument if that's like, yo, he's standing up for his teammates. He's being a good person. You can also argue it's him having some fucking common decency and growing a backbone, which isn't necessarily like he's being a good leader. It just means, well, he graduated for being like a real fucking piece of shit. So I guess there's that. I mean, good job, John. I still hate you, which I will go ahead and say, like, he gets way better in the other season. Because it is like right after that whole arc, he's like, all right, Pyrrha, I'm going to take you up on your offer. I do want you to train me. Which like I said, it's like, I really like that. It's just, I feel like we wasted so much time on this arc that I genuinely don't feel like it needed to happen. It's literally like, you could just say, like, John, I want to train you because I believe in you. Thank you. I needed that. And you're right. I do need to work harder. Let's do it. Cool. Like, I would have, like, I don't want to be like, man, this wasted my time, because it's like only a few episodes and it's season 1. The episodes are really short. So it's not really wasting time, but you're also just like, if we skipped this arc, the character would have been more likable. like we could, I feel like you could get to the end point of that character arc and it would have been completely believable in the first place, and he would have been way more likable. But with that development, I guess, like, with that characterization of him actually working harder, he's way better. And then definitely in Volume 3, you see the leadership aspect. Part of that is in the first fight where he's like, okay, like, I am going to direct us a bit more and, like, come up with, like, strategy and shit. But you also see, like, his emotional intelligence as a leader. Like, look, I can tell that Pyrrha's not all right. I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to spend some time with her and do what I can. And, like, how focused he is on making sure that his team is okay. It's kind of interesting. It's like he hits a lot of focus in season 1 and I hate it. And then in the other 2 seasons where he doesn't get as much, I'm like, dude, you were, like, way better. It's not a huge bar to clear because I fucking hated you in season 1. You're way, way better, though. After that, it's Weiss. I don't feel like I have a whole lot to say about Weiss, except I fucking love her design. Like, the side ponytail, it's not a dress, it's a battle skirt. It gives me, like, a Cinderella-y vibe. Like, it's not quite Cinderella, but it's Cinderella adjacent, even though theoretically she could probably more Snow White. But I really like the design. I think it's really cool. No pun intended, because Ice Queen. She's a bitch in season 1, like, 100%. She's really bratty, really obnoxious, although the scene where she's literally reading to Ruby the Schnee Dust Company is not responsible for blah, 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 blah. Like, when she's, like, actually reading that, I was like, that's actually pretty funny. I enjoyed that, but she's just the worst. in season 1. And then, like, there's this whole thing where she's getting into an argument and a fight with Blake. And she comes across as really, really racist. Because her whole thing is like, look, I don't like the White Fang organization. The reason I don't like them is, A, just, I don't generally care for organizations that use violence to solve change, like to get change. You're a terrorist, and I think that's fucked up. And I think anyone who supports a terrorist organization is fucked up, and that's not okay. 2, they've been at war, and I mean war, with my family's company for my entire lifetime. I have known people who I've cared about that died because of them. And the stress that my father was under made him a real fucking piece of shit of a father. So I haven't had the best life because of these terrorists. So forgive me for not liking them or sympathizing with them. That's perfectly understandable. But when every time she sees a faunus, she's like, you dirty, mangy monkey. Well, I bet those, like, fucking vermin from the White Fang. And it's like, oh gosh, you're just awful. Like, there's a way you can write this to make, like, get her point across and not have her come off as, like, this really racist piece of shit. Because she's not like that in the other 2 seasons. She has no problem with faunuses. What's the plural of that? Is it faunuses? Is it fauni? Faune? I think I'm just going to say faunuses, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But she has no problem with faunuses in the other seasons. And granted, probably a big chunk of that is, hey, one of my teammates is a faunus, and I still think, like, I'm still good with my teammates, so I don't care. She has a checkered past, but she's not like that anymore, and I respect that, so I'm cool. Which I guess it's like she was really racist and then met someone of the race she hated and went, wait, you're cool. Oh shit, racism's dumb. And I don't like it. I mean, I'm glad she realized racism is bad, because it is. Like, I don't hate the fact that she got over her prejudice. I just think I just don't think it was written super well or super compelling, if I'm being honest. I kind of hate Weiss in season 1, but there are, like, a few moments here and there I'm like, all right, that kind of made me laugh a little bit. And again, I think her design is really cool. And then, like, Blake and Yang, I don't really have much to say about them as far as Volume 1 goes, because they don't really, like, neither of them have much of an arc or much depth. Yang in particular, I like what we get of Yang. Like, I love her just big sister energy. The fact that, like, yeah, she, like, rides on motorcycles and shit. She just wants to throw hands. There's a scene where it's like, hey, we're having a big, like, slumber party with all the first years. And Ruby's like, yeah, I don't think Dad would, like, approve of all the boys. And Yang's like, I do. And I'm like, oh, I guess she's like a total horn dog. And yeah, that's, like, not a thing at all in the later seasons. It was like, nah, just she's really horny for one line and one line only. I mean, again, in the character trailer, she was grabbing a dude's dick. So there's that, but they don't really do anything with it in season 2 or 3, but it's not an inherently bad thing. I'm just like, all right, I guess that's not part of the character. But she doesn't really do much. Blake also doesn't really do much until the last couple episodes. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a cat girl. Which, again, like I said, the first time I watched RWBY, I was like, yeah, wait, we didn't know this? Like, no shit, which I do appreciate with Penny, where she's like, oh yeah, you mean your faunus friend? You could tell? Wait, this was a secret? Like, I'm confused. I thought that was obvious. Now what they do with her in those couple episodes, like, I feel like she's far more sympathetic in those conversations with Weiss, because Weiss is being, like, actively fucking racist. But, I mean, the fact that she just, like, runs away for a day and, like, doesn't tell her other friends, like, where she is or anything, like, yeah, that's kind of shitty. And from what I remember of, like, Volume 4, I'm like, yeah, that's actually kind of in character, too. But there's not really much else to say. Getting to the rest of, like, Team Juniper, there's not really much to say about Pyrrha. She's nice. She very clearly has a thing for John, and you're also just kind of going, why? But I find her likable enough, and, like, when you do, like, the few times you see her, like, doing shit, you're like, oh, everyone says you're really fucking cool and badass, and the little bit I've seen, I can kind of see it. And then you have Nora and Ren. Ren doesn't really do much, and he doesn't really say much, but I kind of like that. And I don't just mean it in a way where it's like, hey, he doesn't talk, which means he doesn't have shitty lines, that means he's great. I just kind of like how low-key he is. It's like, he doesn't say much, but he can have some kind of funny moments. I don't think there's a lot in Season 1, but I remember at least one in Season 2, where John sits him down, he's like, Ren, you're one of my best friends. You know, I don't really know that much about you. You're really quiet. You don't say much. I basically know nothing about you at all. But you're like the brother I never had, man. And Ren's just like, yeah, I agree. Like, I don't know why that was really funny to me, but it was. And then you have Nora. Nora is so incredibly fucking annoying. And I say that in the best possible way. Because I think she's great. She is way too energetic, way too chipper. She, like, when she starts talking, she does not shut the fuck up. But I just find it so genuine. And it's not ironic. Like, it's genuinely, I find her entertaining. I find her endearing. Like, one of her earliest scenes is she just starts riding a bear. Like, yeah, this character's great. And then again, it's like, what's her weapon? Oh, I have a sledgehammer that tricks into a grenade launcher. Oh, so you are like one of the coolest characters. All right, I respect that. Who else do I have to talk about? I don't really have anything to say about Oz. He doesn't really do much or leave much of an impression, which is kind of bad. But I don't know. He's there. You know, he's essentially supposed to be Dumbledore. You know, using another Harry Potter comparison. Thank you. He's the headmaster. He's taken an interest in the main character. You know, he has a very mysterious past, but he's supposed to come across as, like, very wise, and everyone respects him and trusts him. I mean, sure. I just don't think he has enough screen time for it. It's like, what? He has, like, a conversation with Ruby at the start. He has this one conversation where he's like, hey, guys, you're all about to be huntsmen now. That's about it. Go on, get out of here. And it left, like, no impression. And yet, I still remember Dumbledore saying, ironic that I say remember him saying, and I don't remember the start of the line. But it's either he's talking about the Dark Forest, which is strictly forbidden, or the third floor corridor, which is off limits to anyone who does not wish to die a most painful death. I remember him standing at the Erised Theater and talking to Harry, and he's like, Harry, I know that you've been sneaking out to see this, and I understand why. And it's like what? I think what I love about it is he's just like, what do you think the mirror does, Harry? Instead of just telling him, he's like, all right, what do you think it does? Like, it shows us what we want, whatever we want. Yes and no. Shows us nothing more or less than the deepest desires of our hearts. You've never known your family, so I know what you see. It's like you see them before you. Well, what do you see? Really nice pair of socks. Which, I mean, you know, Dumbledore, like, you know, that's not what he sees. But I feel like, because from what I remember, it's either like Harry's reaction to it, or it was something that like Rowling had said, is that he's not quite lying, but he's not telling the truth either. What I personally imagine is that it, like Harry, he sees his family, like he sees his brother and he sees his sister, and possibly he's wearing some nice socks that like his sister knitted for him or something. But anyways, my point is, it's like Dumbledore, even years later, in book 1/movie 1, left a very strong impression. Oz has like this one conversation with Ruby about like, yeah, leadership and shit, and it's pretty good, but it's not like, man, like I understand this guy is like super wise, this way everyone follows him. It's like, oh, okay, like it was okay, I guess. It wasn't like really great. I didn't think it was bad either. It was fine. And I mentioned Torchwick earlier. I love his design. I love his voice acting. I love everything about this character. He's perfect. We're getting there. We're fucking hour in. I'm like, we're almost done. Probably not really. I just wanted to talk about some of the jank, and some of which I've already talked about. Like I've said, like I think the pacing, especially because of how short a lot of the episodes are, is really weird. It's really fucking off. One of my biggest problems, which I know I mentioned when talking about the trailers, are the non-revs, which is the term I use. I think it was actually the first time I used it was talking about RWBY. It's the term I use to refer to anytime you see a group shot and it's supposed to show a lot of people, but most of the people are in silhouettes. These are non-relevant people. Thus, they're here, but they're not really here. And it's to let the audience know they're meant to be here. Like, keep in mind, this place is supposed to have a lot of people, but, like, we don't have the time or the budget, or we just don't care enough to actually animate them. So here's a bunch of non-relevant silhouettes. And for me personally, like, I get it as far as season 1 goes, and it's not in the other seasons. Like 2 minutes into season 2, I was like, oh, fucking background people. Like, this looks so much better. Like, it's clearly a budget thing. It's clearly a time thing, and I get it. But I find it so hilariously distracting that it just really, really bothers me. Especially when it'll be like, here's all these non-refs. Oh, hey, look, there's one person that's actually filled in. It just makes it look weirder. There's that. Like I've said, like when it comes to the dialogue, I feel like there are some lines that are actually like really funny or actually kind of interesting. There's a lot, though, that just don't work or are very hit or miss. And like I said, Weiss's first scene is basically all misses. I think the way she talks about, like, again, like, I get where she's coming from with the white thing. I don't think it super worked, though. Like, she just does not come across as likable in that interaction at all. And I think she was kind of supposed to. I think the animation outside of fights is very jank. It definitely gets a lot better in season 2 and season 3, but I feel like it is pretty jank. I talked about how John and his arc just does not work for me, and how despite the show being called RWBY, BY don't really do anything, which, like, I remember when Crosstag first came out, I was like, all right, it's gonna have Blaze Blue shit, it's gonna have Undernight shit, it's gonna have P4 shit, and it's gonna have RWBY characters. Like, I think it was like, this is the first RWBY fighting game. I was like, yo, I'm actually kind of hyped for this. I want to play as some RWBY character. This is pretty cool. And I think they had the same thoughts as season 1, because Blake and Yang weren't in the base game. It was just RWBY and Weiss. And I've definitely seen some memes about, like, yeah, it's team just art of like fucking RWBY and Weiss, and then like a fucking like walk over Blake and Yang because they were DLC. Which, to be fair, at the very least, ArcSys was like, okay, admittedly, this specifically was a really stupid decision. They're free DLC, but the fact that they thought it would fly at all is really fucking dumb. But maybe it's because of season 1, where they're like, yeah, Blake and Yang, like, don't do anything in this show. They could just be DLC. there was this one moment where the one teacher, I don't remember his name in my notes, I just called him the walrus teacher because of his massive fucking mustache, where in his class, he's saying some shit about, he's like, hunters or like huntsmen and huntresses, they're blah, 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 blah. But he does this like person, like he looks at Yang and he's like, wow. And I was like, is he hitting on her? Because even Yang afterwards was like, like I didn't like that. Like, I need an adult. Like, she didn't say anything. She's like, were you just hitting on her? What? I wasn't expecting to be reminded of Class of 09 when watching RWBY Volume 1. But here I am, and I didn't like that. I didn't care for that. No siree, Bob. Not one fucking bit. And there's this other moment with Team Cardin when they're bullying the bunny girl, who I don't think she's name dropped in season 1. In season 2, she's named Velvet. There's that part of me that goes, bunny girl, Velvet, like as in the Velveteen Rabbit? Huh? It might be. If you have someone named Glinda Goodwitch, then Velvet is probably a reference to the Velveteen Rabbit, which I think is kind of dope. Where she's being bullied by this team. And everyone's reaction to it is essentially, man, those Cardin guys are dicks. They also treat John like shit. John, do you want us to do anything to them? John's like, no, it's fine. Which, that in and of itself, I actually don't mind. John trying to downplay the situation and his friend saying, look, we've got your back. If you want us to do something, we can. If you don't want us to get involved, sure, we'll respect your decision. I actually don't mind that. But the fact that these characters are watching this girl getting bullied and not just like, okay, these guys are being like dicks. They're like actively pulling on her ears and shit. And they're all just watching going, man, bullies are the fucking worst, while doing nothing about it. I'm like, wait a second. RWBY, like a couple episodes ago, you said, I want to be a huntress because I grew up listening to old stories and fairy tales of people like being heroes and fighting for good and helping people. Fuck. No, I'm sorry. Bahamut is here. He gave me this really weird look. I don't know what that meant. Are you all right, bub? I think he's all right. I think he was smiling, but it was a kind of a weird smile. You good? Yeah, I think he's good. Anyways, but RWBY's like, I want to be a huntress because I want to, for good, and I want to help people. I want to be like that symbol of hope and shit. See someone getting bullied right in front of her. Yeah, that's fucking awful. I'm gonna do nothing to help. You've got Yang, who's like the super, like, I just want to throw hands character, who talks about in season 2, it's like, why do you want to be a huntress? I'm a thrill seeker. I just want to do shit and like have a good time and just see like what crazy shit is going on. She's not gonna just run up to this dude and fucking punch him and throw hands. Like, I feel like RWBY would do it because something, like, this is something wrong and needs to be stopped. Yang would do it for the thrill of punching someone in the face. And then you have Blake, the Faunus, who at this point, do we know that? No. But who's, like, so passionate about this shit that she was part of a cult. Terrorist organization, which granted, she's like, they're pretty fucking awful, so she left. So you could make an argument that Blake is at a point in her life where she's like, I just don't want to use violence to solve problems. But she's not stepping up for this girl either. That's kind of fucking shitty. And then, in hindsight, having watched volumes 2 and 3, I'm like, so Velvet is like an upperclassman. So A, why the fuck is an upperclassman in classes with her underclassmen? That's weird. Excuse me. Generally, it's like in school, as someone who went through 13 years of regular school, because, kindergarten's a year 2, and then undergrad and law school, you're generally placed in your grade with your classes. Now, with electives, sure, you can have some freedom, But generally speaking, like in your first year, you're not going to get electives to have with the older students. It's going to be, this is the fucking curriculum. Learn it. So why is she there? I mean, unless she's like held back, but then I don't know if she'd be like treated as an upperclassman if that's the case. Which also means she's getting bullied and her teammates aren't doing anything about it. Like, in hindsight, I'm like, you mean to tell me that Coco like didn't know about this and didn't stop that shit immediately? I don't buy that. I don't buy that for a fucking second. Like, Cardin bullying John and John saying, don't do anything about it. It's not a big deal. Fully believable. But the shit with Velvet, I'm like, I just don't buy this. This doesn't quite work. But I don't want to, this video's gone on long enough, but I also don't want to end it by just talking about Jank and things I don't like. So the final section of this long-ass video is I'm just going to talk about, as I put it, quote, fun shit. Number one, like I've already said, RWBY's intro, I think, is a really fucking great character intro. Just also her love for Crescent Rose and how she's like cuddling with it. And I think at one point she's just kind of like whispering like sweet nothings toward it, I think is really endearing. I know I've said the dialogue can be really hit or miss, but most of the dialogue in episode 3, I think is actually, it hits. Like, RWBY's, it's like, Yang, like, yo, sis, what happened? Okay, so I exploded, and like I met this girl, and she wouldn't stop yelling at me, and then I exploded, and I'm just not okay. It's all kind of a bit much, and I just don't want her to yell at me anymore. I think that's kind of funny. And then Weiss shows up, and it's like, hey, you, oh my god, it's happening again. Like, I laughed really hard at that. And then Yang's just kind of listening to Weiss talk. She's like, oh my god, you actually exploded. Like, wait, what the fuck? I thought you were over-exaggerating. And also, like I said, Weiss being like, okay, there was an explosion. I have to read the warranty. Definitely got a good laugh out of me. Oh yeah, this is another fight. Like, right before Yang teams up with Blake, she's like fighting a couple of bears, and she's just shit talking that, and like it's a pretty fun fight. But I love how she's just shit talking, does not give a shit, sees that she got clipped just enough, and like this little bit of hair, and she's like, oh, you hit me, and then just how she freaks the fuck out, I think is pretty fun. Something I don't know if I ever noticed before when watching RWBY, I possibly had, and it just didn't register, is Weiss's scar. Because you very clearly see in the White trailer, like, when she gets injured and, like, there's blood around her eye and shit, and there was one episode, I don't remember where it was in Volume 1, where I was like, oh shit, she has a scar. That's from the trailer. That's a really nice attention to detail, and I appreciated that a lot. I've already mentioned the no cape shit. I definitely got a life out of that. I mentioned Nora's bear riding, Red Like Roses Part 2 playing. I completely forgot about the school uniforms, and I like that RWBY is still wearing her cape, even though the cape nearly got her killed. I had to kind of shout that out. When they're talking to John about Cardin breaking them, Nora just offering, like, hey, we'll break his legs. Like, no bullshit, smiling. And then Pyrrha talking later, she's like, John, deadass, we will break his legs. Like, if you want me to, I will fucking do it for you. I really liked that. And probably my favorite, like, dialogue interaction in Volume 1 is when Pyrrha reveals that what her power is. She's like, yeah, like, I have, like, control over polarity. You can control poles? It's really stupid, but I like it a lot. I like how excited RWBY is about the ability to manipulate poles, which I feel like there's a stripper joke you can make in there, but I like Pyrrha enough genuinely that I'm not going to make that joke. But I'm sure someone probably already has. And then you get Weiss's reaction, which I don't remember exactly what she said, but it's something along the lines of, RWBY, you're fucking stupid. That's not what polarity means. It means magnetism. To which RWBY responds by just kind of muttering under her breath, magnets are cool too, I guess. And I feel like those are genuinely some of the funniest moments, like, between the 3 volumes. It's just kind of when RWBY will mutter something, or like she'll have like a really quick clip. Like, I know there's one in volume 3 where she's talking to Penny, and like about one of Penny's teammates, and she's like, hey, like, what's your teammate like? Is she cool? I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, she's kind of like Blake, but if Blake was forced to hang out with you, oh, so Weiss. Like, I got a kick out of that. I thought that was really funny. Like I kind of referenced earlier, like, there's this moment where, I don't even remember what causes it, where Blake says some shit about Weiss, and she's like, you're like, why are you fighting in a skirt, or like in a dress? Like, it's not a skirt, it's a battle dress. Or maybe it's the opposite, like, it's not a dress, it's a battle skirt. Which, admittedly, I don't think is a line that's particularly funny, and I don't think it's delivered super funny either. I haven't really said anything about the voice acting. I actually think the voice acting, for the most part, is actually, like, really good throughout the show. Or, like, it's pretty good. There's very few times where I actively thought, wow, this voice is bad, or this performance is bad. It's not really a problem. Like, 3 seasons in, I think the one voice I actively don't like is Adam's, because it's like nasally enough that it sounds like he has a cold every time he talks, which kind of takes away some of the intimidation factor away, where it sounds like at any given moment this motherfucker's just gonna start sneezing. But I think the voice acting is good, and like, I gotta shout out Cinders. Like, that voice was like sexy. That voice was just, but it's like that line in particular, like, it's not a skirt, it's a battle dress or whatever. And then RWBY going, yeah, like Weiss just like really laid down some sick diss. It's not particularly funny, but the fact that right after they just high five without even looking at each other, that I think is funny. It's like, I really liked that and appreciated that. It's like little moment of kind of character growth between the two. I was like, look, we didn't like each other at first. I fucking hated you. I fucking hated you. But they're cool with each other. And I also think it's really funny. Weiss sees RWBY. He's like, nope. You're not my teammate. I'm not doing this. I'm going to fucking leave you. The next person she sees is John, and immediately just goes back to RWBY. That got a big laugh out of me, too. The only other thing I wanted to shout out is just something I thought was really neat, is when Blake is telling Sun her backstory, and as like, you see like this 2D animated like little baby Blake holding a sign. I was like, that is fucking precious. That is adorable, and I love it. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Volume 1. The condensed version. There's not a whole lot of story. The pacing's kind of off. The visuals, when it's not in a fight, are also kind of off. And there's definitely a lot of issues in the writing. However, I do think there's a strong foundation to build upon, and build upon it does in seasons 2 and 3. I think the little bit we get of our main characters, with pretty much the exception of Weiss, I think is pretty good, and Weiss, I feel like, definitely gets better in other seasons. The fight